1 year after his crash, Daniel Cole had become the most dangerous thing on VXARA-7. His cave was no longer just a shelter. It was a fortress carved into the rock, decorated with the trophies of every major predator on the planet. Razorjaw skulls lined the entrance. Shadowstalker hides covered the floors. The teeth and claws of a dozen species hung from the walls, each one representing a creature that had tried to kill him and failed. Traders began making detours to the planet just to see if the legend was real. Most of them observed from orbit, too afraid to land. The few brave enough to touch down never stayed long. The jungle terrified them, and the stories about the human who ruled it terrified them even more. Daniel watched them come and go without much interest. He had no reason to leave. The jungle was his home now, more than Earth had ever been. That changed when Lisa Vance arrived. Her ship was small and fast, built for someone who valued speed over comfort. She landed in the clearing where the survey team had camped months ago, and then she did something no other visitor had done. She walked into the jungle alone. Daniel tracked her for 3 days. She was good, better than anyone he had encountered since crashing here. She moved quietly through the undergrowth, avoided the major predator paths, and never panicked when she heard something dangerous nearby. She was clearly trained for hostile environments, but she was not as good as him. On the 4th day, he allowed her to find him. Lisa was sitting by a small fire she had built in a rocky clearing when Daniel stepped out of the shadows. She did not scream or reach for her weapon. She simply looked up at him and smiled. "Took you long enough," she said. "I was starting to think the stories were exaggerated." Daniel studied her. She was human, mid-30s, with short dark hair and eyes that had seen violence. Her gear was expensive, but well used. This was not her first dangerous job. "Who are you?" he asked. "Lisa Vance, bounty hunter." She gestured to a spot across the fire. "Sit down. I have a job offer." Daniel remained standing. "I do not need money. This is not about money." Lisa's smile faded. "This is about Grathmore." The name meant nothing to Daniel, but the way Lisa said it suggested it should. "Grathmore is a Kellari warlord," she explained. "He runs the most powerful raider fleet in the Outer Fringe. Smuggling, slavery, murder. He does it all. But his favorite business is hunting. Hunting what? Humans." Lisa's voice was cold. "He captures people from frontier colonies and sells them to wealthy clients. They get dropped into hunting arenas and killed for entertainment. Men, women, children. It does not matter to him. Humans are just prey in his eyes." Daniel's hands tightened into fists. "The Galactic Council will not touch him," Lisa continued. "He operates outside their jurisdiction, and he pays off anyone who gets close. I have been tracking him for 2 years, but I cannot take him down alone. Then I heard about you." "Why me?" Lisa laughed. "Are you serious? You survived a year on the deadliest planet in the Fringe with nothing but rocks and bones. You killed creatures that make Grathmore's pet monsters look like house cats. You are exactly what I need." Daniel considered her words. He had no attachment to the outside galaxy. He had found peace here, in the jungle, away from the species that had written him off as weak. But then Lisa said something that changed everything. "Grathmore's crew includes a group of Kellari traders. They work the frontier, scouting for targets, identifying vulnerable colonies." She paused. "About a year ago, they reported finding a crashed human on Vexra 7. They took his emergency beacon and left him to die. Grathmore thought it was hilarious." Daniel went very still. "Those traders are still with him," Lisa said softly. "They are part of his inner circle now." The fire crackled between them. Somewhere in the jungle, a creature screamed as something killed it. "I do not want payment," Daniel said finally. "Then what do you want?" He looked at her with eyes that had watched 100 predators die. I want them to know it was me." They left Vexera 7 together the next morning. Daniel brought only what he had made himself, armor crafted from razorjaw, hide, weapons carved from bone and tooth, and the skills he had learned from a year of being hunted by the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Lisa's ship was cramped but functional. They traveled for 3 days through the outer fringe, stopping at a space station to refuel and gather information about Grathmore's current location. The station was crowded with species from across the galaxy. Traders, smugglers, mercenaries, all of them looking for profit in the lawless frontier. Daniel drew stares wherever he went. His armor was unlike anything they had seen, and his presence was unsettling in a way none of them could explain. In a crowded bar, 3 Kelari decided to test the strange human dot. They approached him while Lisa was gathering supplies elsewhere. The largest one, a scarred veteran with gold-tipped scales, pushed Daniel against the bar and bared his teeth in what passed for a Kelari smile. "Look at this," he said to his companions. "A human playing dress-up. Where did you get the costume? Soft one. Did you buy it from someone who actually knows how to fight?" Daniel did not respond. "Nothing to say?" The Kelari pressed closer. "Maybe I should take that armor. It is wasted on prey like you." What happened next was so fast that most of the bar missed it entirely. The Kelari reached for Daniel's armor. Daniel moved. 3 seconds later, all 3 Kelari were on the ground, disarmed and groaning. Daniel had not even drawn a weapon. He had simply used their own momentum against them, redirecting their strength with precise, economical movements. He looked down at the scarred veteran, who stared back with something new in his eyes. Fear. "I am not prey," Daniel said quietly. He walked away without another word. Behind him, the bar erupted in whispers. Everyone had seen what happened, and everyone would talk about it. Word spread through the station within hours. By the time Lisa returned, every trader and smuggler on the fringe was discussing the human in bone armor, who had humiliated 3 Kelari without breaking a sweat. 2 days later, the story reached Grathmore. The warlord listened to the report with amusement. A human who thought he was dangerous. How entertaining. He had killed hundreds of humans in his arenas, and none of them had ever posed a real threat. This one would be no different. Grathmore smiled and began preparing his finest hunting arena. He would capture this human personally, and the galaxy would watch him die like all the others. He had no idea what was coming for him. The escape pod hit the ground hard, and Daniel Cole felt every bone in his body shake from the impact. Metal screamed as the pod tore through thick jungle vegetation before finally stopping against a massive tree. For a long moment, he simply lay there, breathing, alive. Barely blood dripped down his forehead, and his left arm hung at a bad angle. Through the cracked viewport, he could see an alien jungle stretching in every direction. Giant trees with purple leaves blocked out most of the sky. Strange sounds filled the air, clicks and growls and something that sounded like screaming far in the distance. He was alone. The raiders had come out of nowhere, tearing through his convoy's defensive ships like they were made of paper. Daniel had managed to reach an escape pod just before the transport exploded. He had watched through the small window as his crewmates died in the vacuum of space, their bodies floating among the wreckage. Now he was here. Wherever here was. Daniel forced himself to move. He popped his dislocated shoulder back into place, biting down on his sleeve to keep from screaming. Then he gathered what little remained in the pod. A broken knife with half its blade missing, a torn emergency blanket, a water purification tablet. Nothing else had survived the crash. He climbed out of the pod and immediately felt the heavy, humid air press against his skin. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth's standard, making each step feel like he was carrying extra weight. The jungle around him was dense and dark, despite it being what he assumed was daytime. Something moved in the shadows, between the trees. Something big. Daniel backed against the pod, holding his broken knife in front of him. The creature that emerged was unlike anything he had ever seen. It stood on 4 legs, covered in black scales that seemed to absorb light. Its head was flat and wide with no visible eyes, but somehow Daniel knew it was looking directly at him. It sniffed the air once. Then it turned and walked away, disappearing into the jungle. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he was holding. He had no idea why the creature had left, but he was not going to waste the opportunity. He needed to find shelter, water, and figure out where he was. 3 hours later, he found his answer in the worst possible way. Ship descended from the sky and landed in a clearing not far from his crash site. Daniel watched from behind a fallen log as 4 tall figures emerged. They were reptilian, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms, each in scales that shifted between green and gold in the light. Their eyes were cold and calculating as they surveyed the jungle. Kelari. Daniel recognized them from his training. A species known for trading, raiding, and caring about nothing except profit. One of them spotted the escape pod, and they approached it with weapons drawn. Daniel knew he should hide, but he was desperate. Maybe they would help him. Maybe they had a way to contact rescue services. He stepped out from his hiding spot with his hands raised. The Kelari stopped and stared at him. Then they started laughing. It was a harsh, clicking sound that sent chills down Daniel's spine. The largest of them, clearly the leader, walked toward Daniel with an amused expression on his face. "A human," the Kelari said, his translator device turning the clicks into words Daniel could understand. "All the way out here in the outer fringe." How delightfully pathetic. "My ship was attacked," Daniel said. "I need help. I can pay for transport back to human space." The Kelari laughed again. "Pay? With what? You have nothing, soft one. Look at you. Bleeding, broken, standing on Vexera 7 of all places." He shook his head with something like pity. "Do you know where you are? This planet kills everything. Creatures that have survived for millions of years die here within days. And you, a human, one of the weakest species in the galaxy, you think you will survive?" The other Kelari were already stripping useful parts from the escape pod. One of them found the emergency beacon and tossed it to the leader. "Please," Daniel said. "That beacon is my only chance." The leader examined the beacon and then tucked it into his belt. "This will fetch a good price. Consider it payment for the entertainment of meeting you." He leaned close to Daniel, his breath hot and foul. "You have 3 days, human. Maybe 4 if you find water. Then this jungle will eat you, and no one will ever know you existed." They left him there, standing in the clearing, with nothing but a broken knife and the clothes on his back. Daniel watched their ship rise into the sky and disappear. For a long moment, he felt nothing but despair. He was alone on a death world with no supplies, no communication, and no hope of rescue. Every logical part of his brain told him he was already dead. But something else stirred inside him. Something stubborn and angry and very, very human. He looked at the jungle around him. It was trying to kill him. Everything on this planet wanted him dead. The Kelari had written him off as prey, as something too weak to matter. They were wrong. Daniel had grown up on Earth's frontier colonies, where survival was a daily struggle. He had trained as a ranger, learning to track, hunt, and live off land that wanted him dead. This jungle was different, alien, more dangerous than anything he had faced before. But the principles were the same. Observe, adapt, survive. He spent the rest of the daylight hours watching the jungle. He noted which creatures moved through the trees and when. He watched the patterns of predators, learning their routes and habits. He found a cave system in a rocky outcropping and explored it carefully, making sure nothing else called it home. When night fell, it brought new terrors. Creatures he had not seen during the day emerged from the darkness. One pack in particular made his blood run cold. They were wolf-like beasts with no eyes, their skin pale and translucent. He could see their organs pulsing beneath their flesh as they moved through the jungle. They hunted by heat. He realized this when they passed directly over a warm rock where a small creature had been resting moments before. They followed heat signatures like bloodhounds followed scent. Daniel covered himself in cold mud from the cave floor. He pressed himself against the stone wall and held his breath as the creatures entered his cave, sniffing, searching. Their eyeless heads turned in his direction, but his heat signature was masked. They moved on. He survived the first night. The next morning, Daniel found a grim discovery deeper in the cave system. Bones, dozens of them, from species he recognized and many he did not. Each skeleton had a small device nearby, a personal recorder left behind by the dying. He listened to them one by one. A Vorn scientist who lasted 8 days. A Kilari hunter who made it 6. A creature from a species he did not recognize who survived only 3. None of them had made it more than 12 days. Daniel set down the last recorder and looked at the pile of bones. These had been trained survivors, equipped with advanced technology, and still the planet had killed them all. He picked up his broken knife and began working on a new weapon, using bone and stone from the cave. The knife was not enough. He needed spears, traps, armor. He needed to become something more than human. The Kilari had given him 3 days. Daniel planned to give this planet a lifetime of regret. 3 months had passed since Daniel Cole crashed on Vexera 7, and he was no longer the same man. His body had changed first. The soft edges of civilized life had burned away, replaced by lean muscle and quick reflexes. Scars covered his arms and chest, each one a lesson learned the hard way. His eyes had developed a constant alertness, always scanning, always watching for movement in the shadows. But the deeper change was in his mind. He no longer thought like prey. He thought like a predator. The jungle that had once terrified him was now his territory. He knew every hunting path, every water source, every den where dangerous creatures slept during the day. He had mapped the entire region around his cave in his head, understanding the rhythm of the ecosystem better than any scientist with fancy equipment ever could. Today, he was hunting a razor-jaw. The creature was one of the most feared predators. On Vexera 7, it stood 12 feet tall on powerful hind legs, with arms that ended in claws capable of cutting through metal. Its mouth was filled with teeth that could bite through bone like paper. Even Kilari hunters, with their advanced weapons and centuries of experience, considered killing a razorjaw to be a legendary achievement. Daniel had been tracking this one for 6 days. He crouched behind a fallen tree, covered in mud and plant matter that masked his scent. In his hands, he held a spear made from the leg bone of a creature he had killed 2 months ago. The tip was sharpened razor-jaw tooth, stolen from a skeleton he had found in the deep jungle. The creature was close. He could hear its breathing, slow and steady, as it moved through the undergrowth toward the bait he had placed. A dead animal, positioned perfectly to draw the razor-jaw into a narrow passage between 2 rock walls. Daniel had spent 3 days preparing this kill zone. Sharpened stakes hidden under leaves, trip vines that would tangle its legs, a pit covered with branches that would drop it into a hole lined with poisoned spikes. The razor-jaw entered the passage. Daniel held his breath as the creature sniffed the bait. It was cautious, intelligent even. Its head turned left and right, scanning for threats. For a moment, Daniel thought it would leave. Then it stepped forward and triggered the first trap. Vines wrapped around its legs, and the creature roared with fury. It slashed at the bindings with its claws, cutting through them in seconds, but those seconds were enough. Its next step landed on the covered pit, and the branches gave. Way beneath its weight, the razor jaw fell into the hole with a thunderous crash. The poisoned spikes pierced its hide, and it screamed, a sound that echoed through the jungle and sent every other creature running for cover. Daniel did not wait. He emerged from his hiding spot and ran toward the pit, spear raised. The creature was trying to climb out, its claws digging into the dirt walls, but the poison was already working. Its movements were slower, weaker. He drove the spear into the soft spot behind its skull, exactly where he had learned the creatures were vulnerable. The razor jaw shuddered once, twice, and then went still. Daniel stood over his kill, breathing hard, covered in dirt and the creature's blood. He had done it. He had killed the unkillable. The next few days were spent processing the body. He stripped the hide for armor, a material stronger than anything he could have made before. He collected the teeth for weapons and tools. He harvested the meat, smoking it over a fire to preserve it for weeks. Nothing was wasted. 1 week after his kill, a ship appeared in the sky. Daniel watched it from the shadows as it landed in a clearing 3 miles from his cave. It was not a raider vessel. The markings on its hull identified it as a Galactic Council survey ship, here for routine biological assessment. A team of 5 emerged. 4 were Vorn, tall and thin creatures with gray skin and large black eyes. They were scientists, carrying equipment for studying the planet's ecosystem. The 5th was a small robot that floated beside them, recording everything. Daniel observed them for a full day before making contact. He needed to know if they were a threat. They were not. He approached their camp on the 2nd morning, stepping out of the jungle like a ghost. The scientists screamed and scrambled for weapons that they clearly did not know how to use. "Calm down," Daniel said. "I am not going to hurt you." The lead scientist, a Vorn named Kethvol, stared at him with wide eyes. "You are human," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Yes, that is impossible." Kethvol checked the device on his wrist. "Our records show no species has survived on Vexera 7 for more than 12 days. You have been here for..." He checked again. 93 days. 94, Daniel corrected. The scientists looked at each other, then back at Daniel. They took in his appearance, the armor made from razor jaw hide, the weapons made from bone and tooth, the scars that told stories of duddles. "How?" Kethvol asked. Daniel shrugged. "I learned." The scientists wanted to take him off the planet immediately. They had a ship, supplies, and a direct route back to civilized space. Daniel could be home within a week. He refused. "Why?" Kethvol demanded. "This planet will kill you eventually. No one survives here forever." "Maybe," Daniel said. "But I am not finished yet." He did not explain what he meant by that. He was not sure himself. All he knew was that leaving felt wrong. This planet had tried to kill him every single day for 3 months, and he had won every single time. Leaving now felt like giving up. The scientists stayed for 2 weeks, conducting their research. During that time, Kethvol followed Daniel whenever possible, documenting his methods with growing fascination. He watched Daniel track prey through seemingly impossible terrain. He watched Daniel set traps that anticipated exactly how creatures would move. He watched Daniel kill a shadow stalker pack with nothing but a bone knife and perfect timing. "Your species is classified as physically weak," Kethvol said one evening, reviewing his notes. "Low strength, slow speed, poor natural weapons. By every measure, humans should be at the bottom of the galactic food chain. And yet here I am," Daniel said. "Yes." Kethvol looked at him with something like fear. "Here you are." When the survey team finally left, Kethvol took his recordings with him. He uploaded them to the Galactic Council's scientific database. Flagged as unusual but not urgent, the recordings spread anyway. Within weeks, traders and travelers in the outer fringe were sharing stories about the human who survived. Vexera 7. Most dismissed it as a lie. A tall tale invented to impress gullible travelers, but some believed, and in a trading post on the edge of civilized space, a group of Kalari traders heard the rumor and laughed. They remembered the soft, bleeding human they had left to die 3 months ago. There was no way he was still alive. They were certain of it. The plan was simple. Get captured. Get thrown into the arena. Then show the galaxy what humans could really do. Daniel and Lisa allowed themselves to be taken by one of Grathmore's patrol ships near the Warlord's fortress moon. The Kalari raiders were rough, stripping them of their obvious weapons and dragging them through the corridors of a hollowed-out asteroid that served as Grathmore's base of operations. They were thrown into a holding cell with 10 other humans. The prisoners were a mix of people taken from frontier colonies. Some were former soldiers, their eyes hard but hopeless. Others were farmers, teachers, ordinary people who had never expected to die in an alien arena. 2 of them were children, a boy and a girl no older than 12, huddled together in the corner. Everyone looked at Daniel and Lisa with suspicion. "More meat for the grinder," muttered a man with gray hair and a broken nose. His name was Kevin, and he had been a Marine before retiring to the frontier. "They will send us into the arena tomorrow. We will be dead by sunset." "No," Daniel said. "We will not." Kevin laughed bitterly. "You do not understand. Grathmore releases monsters into the arena. Real monsters, not the animals we have on Earth. Nobody survives. The record is 11 minutes. Daniel walked to the center of the cell where everyone could see him. He still wore his razor-jaw armor, though the guards had taken his weapons. They had laughed when they saw the bone knife and spear. Primitive garbage, they called it. They did not understand what those primitive weapons had killed. "Listen to me," Daniel said. "I survived alone on Vexera 7 for 1 year. I killed creatures that would make Grathmore's pets run in terror. Tomorrow, when they put us in that arena, we are not going to run. We are not going to hide. We are going to hunt." Silence filled the cell. "You are crazy," someone whispered. "Maybe." Daniel looked at each of them in turn. "But I am also still alive. And if you follow my lead, you will be too." The next morning, guards dragged them from the cell and marched them through winding corridors to the arena entrance. Along the way, Daniel studied everything. Exit locations, patrol patterns, structural weaknesses. He filed each detail away for later. The arena was massive, a dome nearly a mile wide filled with artificial terrain. Forests, rocky outcroppings, shallow rivers, all designed to give prey the illusion of hope before they were torn apart. Above them, observation decks lined the walls where wealthy clients watched the entertainment. At the highest deck, Grathmore sat on a throne made of bones. He was larger than any Kalari Daniel had seen, his scales a deep crimson that spoke of age and power. Around him stood his personal guard, and, Daniel noticed with cold satisfaction, a group of familiar faces, the traitors who had left him to die. "Welcome, humans," Grathmore's voice boomed through speakers placed throughout the arena. "Today you will provide entertainment for my guests. The rules are simple. Survive as long as you can. My creatures will do the rest." Gates around the arena opened, and creatures began emerging. Daniel recognized some of them from his time on Vexera 7. Others were new, collected from death worlds across the galaxy. All of them were designed to kill. The other humans panicked. Some tried to run. Others froze in terror. "Everyone, to me," Daniel commanded. His voice cut through the chaos with an authority that demanded obedience. Now, they gathered around him, even the ones who thought he was crazy. In the face of death, his certainty was the only thing they had. "Kevin, you were a Marine. Take the 3 strongest and guard our flanks. Lisa, you know how to fight. Stay close to the children. Everyone else, stay in the center and do exactly what I tell you." The first creature charged. It was a four-legged beast with tusks the length of swords, built for breaking through defensive lines. Daniel did not run from it. He moved toward it. At the last second, he sidestepped its charge and drove his hand into a gap in its armor like hide. He had seen creatures like this on Vexera 7. He knew their weak points. The beast collapsed, thrashing in the dirt. Daniel pulled a sharp piece of its tusk free and handed it to Kevin. "Now we have a weapon." The battle was unlike anything the audience had ever seen. Instead of scattered prey fleeing in terror, they watched a coordinated unit moving through the arena with purpose. Daniel led them like a general, reading the terrain and the predators with equal skill. When creatures attacked, the humans counterattacked. Daniel showed them where to strike, how to use the environment, how to turn the predator's strength against them. Body after body fell, and not one of them was human. Grathmore watched with growing disbelief. This was not how the hunt was supposed to go. Humans were weak. Humans were prey. They were supposed to scream and die for entertainment. Instead, they were winning. "Send in the Ravagers," he ordered. The Ravagers were his pride. A pack of genetically modified killing machines, bred specifically for arena combat. They had never failed to kill everything in their path. Daniel saw them coming and smiled. He had hoped for something challenging. He led the humans to a narrow canyon in the arena's rocky section. The Ravagers followed, eager for blood, not realizing they were being funneled into a kill zone. The first Ravager hit the tripwire Daniel had made from vines growing on the canyon walls. It stumbled, and Kevin drove a bone shard into its throat. The second and third crashed into the first, tangling together in the narrow space. The humans attacked from above, throwing rocks, stabbing with improvised weapons, using every trick Daniel had taught them. When the last Ravager fell, the arena went silent. In the observation deck, wealthy clients stared in shock. They had paid fortunes to watch humans die, and instead, they were watching something else entirely. They were watching humans hunt. Grathmore stood from his throne, his scales flushing dark with fury. This was not possible. This was not acceptable. "Send in my hunters," he snarled. 20 of my best warriors. End this now." 20 armed Kellari entered the arena through the main gate. They wore advanced armor and carried energy weapons. Against 12 exhausted humans with primitive weapons, they should have been unstoppable. Daniel watched them approach and began moving the group toward a section of dense forest. "They will try to surround us," he told his people. "Do not let them. Stay together. Use the trees for cover, and remember what I taught you. They are bigger than us, stronger than us, but they are not smarter than us." The Galari hunters moved into the forest confident and arrogant. They expected the humans to be hiding, cowering, waiting to be killed. They did not expect the ambush. Daniel had spent a year learning to kill things, the bigger and more dangerous than Kalari. He had fought in jungles far more hostile than this artificial playground. Every trap he set, every attack he planned, every movement he made was the result of 1,000 battles against creatures that would have eaten these hunters alive. When the fighting was over, 20 Kalari warriors lay defeated and disarmed. The humans stood over them, breathing hard, covered in dirt and blood, but alive. The arena fell completely silent. Daniel looked up at the observation deck, directly at Grathmore. The warlord's face was twisted with rage and something else. Something he had probably never felt before. Fear. Daniel spoke loudly enough for every microphone in the arena to pick up his words. "Now I am coming for you." The broadcast had gone out across the outer fringe and beyond. Millions of viewers had tuned in expecting to watch humans die for entertainment. Instead, they had witnessed something unprecedented. They had watched humans become the hunters. Now, the real hunt was about to begin. Daniel led the group through a maintenance access point he had spotted earlier in the arena. Lisa had already contacted a Galactic Council enforcement fleet before they allowed themselves to be captured. Help was coming, but it would take time. Time they would have to buy themselves. The fortress has 3 main sections, Lisa explained as they moved through dark corridors. Arena, holding cells, and Grathmore's personal quarters. He will be retreating to his ship right now. No, he will not, Daniel said. How do you know? Because I know how predators think. Grathmore has never been challenged. He does not know how to run. He will make a stand in his territory, surrounded by his guards, convinced that he can still win. They encountered resistance along the way. Kelari guards rushed to stop them, but they were disorganized and confused. They had been trained to handle frightened prisoners, not coordinated resistance. Daniel and his group cut through them with brutal efficiency. At each junction, they freed more prisoners. Humans from other cells and aliens who had been captured for various reasons. Some joined the fight. Others fled toward escape pods. Daniel let them go. His focus was on one target. The path to Grathmore's quarters was littered with the bodies of guards who had underestimated them. Kevin led a team to secure the escape bay, ensuring the warlord could not flee. Lisa took another group to disable the fortress's defensive systems. Daniel went to the throne room alone. The doors were massive, decorated with the skulls of creatures Grathmore had killed over his centuries of life. Daniel pushed them open and stepped inside. The room was a monument to death. Trophy walls displayed the preserved heads of hundreds of species, including humans. Display cases held weapons taken from defeated enemies. And in the center, standing before a throne of bones, waited Grathmore. The warlord was even more impressive up close. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, his crimson scales gleaming under artificial light. In his 4 hands, he held weapons that pulsed with deadly energy. Behind him stood his personal guard. 20 elite warriors in full battle armor. And among them, cowering near the back, were the 4 Kelari traitors who had left Daniel to die on Vexra 7. So, Grathmore said, his voice dripping with contempt, the human who thinks he is a hunter. I have killed your kind for longer than your species has had space travel. You are nothing. You are prey. Daniel walked forward slowly, unarmed except for the bone knife at his belt. I was prey, he agreed. On Vexra 7, when your traitors left me to die, I was prey. Wounded, alone, with nothing but a broken knife and no hope of rescue. He stopped in the center of the room, surrounded by enemies. But I did not die. Every day, that planet tried to kill me, and every day, I survived. I fought creatures that would make your trophies look like children's toys. I learned to hunt things that had never been hunted before. He looked at Grathmore with absolute calm. And then I came here. For you. Grathmore laughed, a harsh clicking sound that echoed through the chamber. 1 human against my elite guard. You are insane. Maybe, Daniel said. But I am not alone. The walls exploded inward as Lisa's team breached the throne room from multiple entry points. Simultaneously, the lights flickered as Kevin's group disabled the power grid. In the sudden confusion, Daniel moved. He had spent a year fighting in darkness against creatures with better senses than any Kelari. This was nothing. The elite guards fell one by one. Daniel moved through them like water, using their own momentum against them, striking at weak points in their armor that he had identified within seconds of seeing them. Lisa fought beside him, covering his blind spots with precision shots. Within minutes, only Grathmore remained standing. The warlord attacked with the fury of a cornered beast. His weapons carved glowing lines through the air where Daniel had been moments before. He was strong, fast, and experienced. In any fair fight, he would have been unbeatable. But Daniel did not fight fair. He had learned from creatures that did not understand the concept of fairness. He ducked under a swing, rolled past a thrust, and came up behind the warlord. His bone knife found the gap between Grathmore's scales, exactly where he had learned razor jaws were vulnerable. Different species, same principle. Grathmore roared in pain and staggered. His weapons clattered to the floor. Daniel did not kill him. Instead, he grabbed the warlord by his throat and dragged him toward the doors. The Kalari traders scrambled to escape, but Lisa's team blocked every exit. They had nowhere to go. When the Galactic Council enforcement fleet finally arrived, they found a scene that would become legend. Daniel Cole, the human who had survived Vexera 7, standing in the landing bay with Grathmore at his feet. The warlord was alive but broken, his reputation shattered beyond repair. Around them stood the freed prisoners, dozens of species who had watched a single human take down the most feared raider in the Outer Fringe. The traders who had abandoned Daniel could not meet his eyes. They were arrested along with the rest of Grathmore's crew. Their laughter from a year ago, now a distant, bitter memory. In the days that followed, the recordings from the arena and throne room spread across the galaxy. Every species watched the human in bone armor lead his people from victims to victors. They watched him defeat creatures and warriors that should have been unstoppable. The Galactic Council officially reclassified humans as a Class 7 persistence predator species, the highest threat rating in their database. The report noted their endurance, adaptability, cooperation, and most importantly, their refusal to accept the role of prey. Raider attacks on human colonies dropped by 80% within a month. Nobody wanted to be the next GR-ATH-more. Daniel returned to VXA-RA-7. Lisa tried to convince him to stay in civilized space. He had fame, wealth waiting for him, opportunities beyond anything he could have imagined. But Daniel shook his head. "This is my home now," he said. "I know who I am here." Kethval, the Vorn scientist who had documented Daniel's survival months ago, arrived a week later. He had received permission to conduct a formal study on human survival capabilities. Daniel agreed to teach him. They walked through the jungle together, the scientist recording everything while Daniel pointed out predator territories and explained how he had learned to read the ecosystem. Kethval listened with the focused attention of someone who was watching everything he believed be rewritten. Lisa visited when she could, bringing news from across the galaxy. Humans were being treated differently now. Not with friendship exactly, but with respect. Sometimes fear. Nobody called them weak anymore. One morning, Daniel heard a crash in the distance. He tracked the sound to a clearing where an escape pod had torn through the canopy and come to rest against a massive tree. 4 Kalari traders stumbled out, coughing and disoriented. They looked around at the hostile jungle with terror in their eyes. Then they saw Daniel, emerging from the trees. He was covered in predator hides. Weapons made of bone and tooth hung from his belt. Scars marked his exposed skin, and his eyes held the calm patience of something that had stopped being prey a long time ago. The Kalari immediately dropped everything they were carrying. They fell to their knees, hands raised, begging for mercy in broken sentences. Daniel looked at them for a long moment. Then he smiled and held out a container of water. "Welcome to Vexera 7, he said. "Let me show you how to survive." Somewhere across the galaxy, a new saying was spreading through trading posts and space stations. Never underestimate a human. And never, ever hunt one. Because if you do, you might discover too late that you were never the hunter at all. You were always the prey.